Welcome to How to Decorate from Ballard Designs, a weekly podcast all about the trials and triumphs of decorating and redecorating your home. I'm Caroline, I'm on the marketing team.
And I'm Taryn, and I'm a product designer.
I'm Liz, I head up the creative team.
We're your hosts. Join the expert team at Ballard Designs for tips, tricks, and tales from interior designers, stylists, and other talents in the design world.
Plus, we'll answer your decorating dilemmas at the end of each episode.
We love answering your questions, so don't forget to email us at podcast@ballarddesigns.net.
Now, on with the show.
Today's guest is interior designer and author Elaine Griffin. Originally from the coastal town of Brunswick, Georgia, she splits her time between Brunswick and New York, where her business, Elaine Griffin at Home, has been bringing stylish spaces to clients for 25 years. She started her design career working with architect Peter Marino. After working in New York and Paris as a publicist for nearly 10 years, she's been a contributing editor for Better Homes and Gardens and Elle Decor and has her own book, Design Rules, The Insider's Guide to Becoming Your Own Decorator. Elaine, thank you for joining us.
It's so wonderful to be here.
You're the perfect guest for how to decorate. I mean,
yes,
in
exactly.
the sense of
You wrote the book.
You wrote the book on it.
I wanted design rules to be like the joy of cooking. I wanted it to be timeless. I wanted it to be that, like the Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm a third generation educator, fourth actually. And so part of what I do is teach. So I want my clients to leave. My boyfriend says I'm bossy. And so I want my clients, I want to leave them with a greater understanding of design than when they found them. And I realized at a certain point that I had all of this that I wanted to share with a broader audience. And that's why I wrote the book.
Well, the book is just fantastic. I know I personally went through every room in my house and read that chapter in that room and was like, oh, well, I need to fix that. Oh, I see it. So, and that's one of the great things about this book too, is that it is so informative. And if you're feeling like you're not hitting it in your dining room, you just grab the book, go into your dining room and read that chapter. And you're like, oh, okay. I need symmetry on the console.
Yes.
I need function over here.
Yes.
Like I need this much space between my chair and the wall or another piece of furniture.
Yes.
It is so informative.
I want to come over and give you a big kiss. Because you got it. I mean, the book came out in 2009, which is mind-boggling that it's still in print. Thank you, Penguin, very much. And so the rules of why, because there are rules, why something looks good. It's just like there's such a huge relationship between designing a house, and fashion, dressing a body, right? Mm-hmm. There's a reason that something looks good on you, that doesn't look good on you, that doesn't look good on me, that looks really great on you. And it's because of the relationship between, our bodies and what we're wearing. There's a definite relationship between the four walls that constitute any house anywhere in the world. It's a hut. It has four walls, a ceiling, and a floor. There's a relationship between the door of the door, the entryway into a room, the windows, and where the furniture goes. That relationship was the same in 1763 as it was in 1957, as it will be in 2526. Mm-hmm. And I hope my book is still in print then. So that's the whole story of it.
I mean, you're right, Liz. I loved, it's a reference book. So it's great to, read cover to cover, then go back if you're, working on your room. I loved that about it. And it's so informative, but it's so fun to read. The writing is so good. Yeah. And it felt like I was chatting with you.
That's I wanted it to be, because I am not, so many designers are pedantic, and God bless their hearts. So bless their sweet hearts. Well, you're so Southern. And although the North has co-opted that now, you have people in New York talking about bless their hearts. I'm like, don't do it. So it's I want to be the girlfriend decorator, like your girlfriend next door that you came over and you're like, what should I do to fix this? Mm-hmm. I wanted to be that person. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's friendly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Friendly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like, because you don't feel like intimidated by it or, it makes it feel, I think, more approachable and easy to accomplish because of the writing, and you make it feel, I guess, like fun and not hard.
No,
if that makes sense.
Here's a secret. If I were to give you $20 to buy a pair of jeans, you $200 a pair of jeans, and you $500, you will.
Thank you so much.
she's headed to Neiman's, and so you would be able to do that and bring me back jeans in 10 minutes because you have been dressing yourself since you were 12 years old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For most people, until they actually the college dorm is their first, kind of independent living. They don't really get a choice of their rooms, because then you're choosing it's like a new comforter. So we're not going to talk about your childhood bedroom unless your mom has you working with a designer to do it, which does happen, by the way. That's how grand and fancy divas train their daughters to work with designers. We always start with their ownership of their own bedroom when they're like 12. Mm-hmm. And then I have one family in New York. They're amazing. And the lady has 5 kids, and I did 4 of their apartments because, the mom and I did it. How cool was that? In any case, for their first apartments. And then, of course, they did the second ones by themselves. Until you have your first apartment, you are not thinking about what style sofa I like. You're not really thinking about what's my design style. You're seeing, if you travel, you see hotels, you might go to museums. Very few people, HGTV has totally transformed. Your catalog has transformed because you're bringing these finished rooms to people. Mm-hmm. And for some people, that's all they see. Mm-hmm. They see your catalog. They see design shows on TV, which are definitely not reality-based. And I can tell you because I was on one. And so that's it. And they see hotels. So that's why it's so intimidating. Mm-hmm. Only one job you'll ever do is intimidating. And which one is that? The first one. Yeah, second one, you have little awkward moments like, what do I do with my sideboard? Why is my dining room? But you didn't, we have our question coming up, which is great. And so the lady's working on her lake house. She has one color. She has one question. It's about the color of her wall. She's not asking where her sofa should go. She knows that. So,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. No, it's a great point.
That's how we decorate. So this is really for first timers, which is great because it's all of those things you don't know which way your flooring should go. If you're laying down hardwood floors, which way, or LVP, which way, and there's a rule of like which way they should go. They should be like parallel. Right now, they don't know. Right. They don't know.
I was thinking when I was reading this, I was like, this would be a great wedding gift.
Oh,
thinking about you, because a lot of times there's a lot of compromise right at that juncture of your life too.
Yeah.
And so to have the rules, so I'm not being like, no, this doesn't feel right, and him being like, that's not a good answer. You can be like, well, on
Elaine
page
says.
45.
I love that.
So I was like, I feel like this is a really good
wedding gift.
It's a great
Or moving in. We're moving in.
Yes.
Housewarming gift.
Yeah, definitely a good
too.
housewarming.
Of maybe not later on life. It might be considered rude if it's like their 4th house and it's your best friend. You're like, hey,
I have something to tell you.
Exactly. But probably a good starter to your point.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, it's like, but to your point about the fashion, I think even when you're dressing and learning to dress, sometimes you might put something on and it looks good. You don't know why it looks good.
That's it.
And I think your notes about especially the measurements and the orientation of the room, walking into the room, and like how the focal points are related to the entries.
Right.
That's articulating why it works, even though you might have seen it. You feel that it works.
You feel that it works. See, that's it. You guys are so happy because you're nailing it. There is rational why. And it's never because I said so. There is a rational why behind the reason that everything looks good. As a rule, it's about proportion. 9 times out of 10, it's about proportion. Proportion is mathematically calculated. We have the golden mean that we study in design, architect, and design school. And that's when it starts with 2 plus 3 is 5. Quick learning experience here. It's 2 plus 3 is 5. And then it's always the sum of the next one. So 5 plus 2 is 7. And so, and it goes up like that correspondingly. That means that and I think I say this in a book talking about baseboards because people are like, what? They're, at a certain point, which size baseboard should I have, proportionately to that? And it's mathematically calculable, calculable, why something looks great. When I am particularly with rug sizes, area rug sizes, I'm flummoxed as to, exactly how, because if you're spending money on a nice rug, you need to know that, this is the right size. And you're doing that often as a professional designer, you're doing that before the walls of a house are even built. So that's a mathematical calculation that you can do. So that's one of the things that I teach my readers, like how to figure that stuff out.
Yeah. And I think if anything, just to make a smart investment the first time, in terms of like, if you buy a sofa, then because of your sofa, one coffee table is going to make sense, or side tables, because you have the measurements of the sofa and the other 3 pieces are based off of. It's just, there's so much in there. I mean, literally like going through and just underlining, like I would have underlined the whole book.
Oh, yes!
Because every page is just really chock full of tips.
Yeah, this is definitely a write in the margins and start flagging.
As you're supposed to. And that is my number one. If I can tell you, I have like 2 tips that are going to be on my 2. Number 1 is that curtains should always be hung as close to the ceiling line as possible. You have to leave enough, and it's typically about an inch. You have to leave enough ease for, to actually get them into their little brackets. But other than that, you want them, because they can never just like, you want them to be as high up as they possibly can. And the second one is that a coffee table must always be lower than the top of the sofa that it's next to, because you want to put your drink down. Never in the history of writing have you ever heard anyone putting their drink up. You put it down.
I'm shocked that's your number 2.
Well, here's another one, number 3, while we're there putting drinks down. The distance between your sofa, and we don't say couch. It's in the design world, we have sofas. So the difference, I make my clients, I'm like, y'all aren't buying couches, we're buying sofas, people. And so the difference between your sofa and the coffee table is always 18 inches.
Okay.
The chairs on the side can be more or less, never less than 15, because, you have to walk through, right? But 18 inches is the perfect. Don't do 24, because some people will do that in 24. And if you do 24, you're like scooting it up.
You can't reach.
You can't reach. It's always 18. The sides are different because, poor side chair. It's like, oh well, you can't really. That's why we put like a little table next to.
We love a good drink table.
Yes, the drink table. The drink table is because the coffee table is going to be more than 18 inches away.
And that's when, if you have chairs, a lot of times you'll have something over. But if the chairs are more than 18 away from the coffee table, that drink has to go down somewhere
and not on the floor. And your first apartment, you can put it on the floor. But after that,
once you find a nice room, you are not putting it on the floor.
Even a stack of design books, like, you can come up with something. It doesn't have to be a table. A
plate. You need you're gonna have something to put down. Sorry.
Well, I mean, like,
even if it's not a drink, you're gonna have a plate. You're gonna have your phone. You're gonna have something to set down.
Book.
And yes, something on there.
Do you find that people, because I feel like often with just friends, or you go somewhere and they're kind of doing their first space, I feel like people leave too much room. I mean, because 18 inches between your sofa and your coffee table is really not that much. But I feel like people often spread everything really apart, thinking it makes the space look bigger. But in reality, it just makes it feel
or that they're filling the space.
Yeah.
But they're really not filling the space at all.
I mean, I guess they are spreading everything out. It just is uncomfortable. It doesn't look right.
You don't feel when you walk into a well-designed space, and keep in mind, we're talking about the back office, right? We're not talking about what style. That's why I don't really have gorgeous illustrations in my book. I have etchings that are inspired by the French illustrator Pierre Leton. They're kind of like the ones that you see in the Wall Street Journal, little etchings, because I want to illustrate. I wanted to illustrate a point and not have you get I don't like the stripe on that chair, because we have an emotional reaction to rooms, right? Because we live in rooms. Homes are the most important things that we have. There's only one decision that is more important than where you live, and that's who you live with. Think about it. Once you acquire that other, even if it's roommates, that's the biggest decision, that you make. That's not where you went to college, once you graduate and all that stuff. So home has this, it's where we keep the things we love, the people we love. We have this emotional attachment to home. This is an interesting point because I could just ramble, but there are 4 things that determine your design style, right? When you're, because that's the first thing we talked about, how, you until you start thinking about your design style for the first time, you haven't really thought about it. But there are 4 things, and it's a questionnaire that you can do. And it's number 1, where you're from, where you're at. That's not proper English, but where you are, where you're at, where you're from, where you're at, where you've been, and where you're going. Where you're from, where you're at, where you've been, and where you're going. Those 4 things influence your personal style. We have an emotional relationship with home. Either you loved it growing up or you hated it. And you're going to if you loved it, you will replicate it. And if you hated it, you will flee, 180 degrees. Where'd you grow up? Tell me about the house you grew up in.
I grew up in Augusta, Georgia.
Okay, I already know everything you can. Next. Where did you? I can hear your mother's voice right now, darling. Where did you grow up?
Indiana, outside of Chicago.
Oh my gosh, we're from the plains. Farm. You have a relative who lived on a farm, at least one.
No. Northwest Indiana is not that way.
Oh, it's not, because that's really close to Chicago, right?
Right. We consider ourselves more of a suburb of Chicago.
Oh, okay. So that's a whole different story. Yeah. But you still have a Midwesterner's viewpoint of the world.
Sure, I suppose so.
Yeah. She's very nice.
Yes. Yeah. She's
very nice.
I'm going to stay at your house first, but she's going to have the best decorated guest room. So
it's true.
I don't know. Let Caroline go. I think change your opinion.
Okay, so where'd you grow up?
Mobile, Alabama.
What? Where? Oh, Mobile.
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know. Yeah, what does that mean?
There's one city in the world that is more southern than Mobile and more southern than Augusta, and that's Jackson, Mississippi. So see with Mobile. I love Alabama. You throw the best dinner parties.
Oh, she does.
See?
She really does.
That pinpointed.
See? We're having a party at your house.
Here's the thing. We don't have much to do there, so we do like to have people over. You entertain. You win. Of the entertaining Olympics, you get the gold. I don't know. Terrence throws a really good party too.
Augusta still.
She's from Augusta.
It's still the South, so we're still hosting people.
Still, Augusta is the most patrician of the southern cities. More so than Atlanta. Atlanta is, grand and fabulous. So this is old South. Oh.
What about Brunswick?
Brunswick is interesting because we were a really great port city, back in the day. My great-grandfather came to Darien, which is the next county up in Georgia and near Brunswick, he was sent by the Presbyterian Church in 1873 to educate the freed slaves. So, I'm an old Georgia family. I had to do my genealogy for the Times when I was married for 5 minutes. And so, because I hadn't really done it before, because my mom never really talked about it. So I had no idea. But the South we have a new South now, which is really great and contemporary. But my mother was very, very Southern, and she was, if they did not know who your people were for 3 generations, you were not accepted into black society. I don't care what color you were; it was the same thing. I grew up in Brunswick before St. Simon's was, invented, really, truly. So, and so I remember, Brunswick's glory days. They're coming back. Like downtown was downtown, but, before, had them all. And then so now it really is the gateway for St. Simon's and Sea Island and Jekyll, which has its place, but, it's not as fabulous as it was. So, I claim the islands as well, because we're all, one. So, but if you grow up in a resorty area, no matter where I have lived, I've lived in New York, I went to college in Connecticut, and I lived in Paris for 5 years. You will always see shells in my spaces because I grew up, going to the beach. So resorty, I am always at home in a pink and green room. I love this pink. Well, I'm totally like, oh my gosh, it's Nassau. My favorite colors are the colors of the sunrise and the sunset. Those are always great accent colors, by the way. Sunset colors and sherbet colors are the perfect accent colors. And you always have that slightly resorty feeling. Slightly. You could see this person used to go to the beach a lot. And it's funny, now that I've moved back home, I still have my shells because, they're part of my design aesthetic. And now I kind of feel like they're touristy because we have shells right outside.
Right. Do you, you said every home always feels a little resorty. Is that like the colors? Is that the shells? Is that woven materials?
Colors.
All three?
Colors. Always the colors. Because, you think of those sherbet pastel colors that you would see truly on Golden Girls. It's true. It's true. It's like, think about it. It's those kind of pastel colors.
Well, I think that's why it's hard, is a lot of those pastel tones a certain amount of us identify back to that era. And so, again, I know it's hard to be but I remember watching the Golden Girls.
Don't you?
So it's hard to transition those colors, I feel like, into homes today and feel relevant. You're so scared you're going to make a bad sherbet move.
But did you guys grow up with living rooms that you could actually walk in?
Oh, you weren't allowed to.
No, see?
Yeah.
I think you could go into yours. She had free reign over her whole house. No.
We weren't allowed in the front row.
No.
You weren't allowed in there?
No.
White sofas with big bullion fringe.
Yes.
Because if the dog got in there too and sat on the sofa, it was
no. When my mother passed, the first thing I did was sit on the sofa. As a deliberate act of freedom. I was like, I can sit here now. No, they didn't do that.
I agree. We had the formal, the front room was even more formal, I feel like, than the dining room.
Yes. You could eat at the dining table. You could have snacks there. You could do homework there or something. No.
And it was just a sitting room. No.
I mean, we weren't allowed to eat in there, but we could go in there.
What would you do in the sitting room?
Read, have performances,
Sit.
See,
that's it. Have performances. Yeah. There you go again. Again.
It was the performing room.
Yeah,
right.
But I don't know. I guess we entertained in there a lot. So it seemed like we were in there a lot. But it's not like that wasn't allowed in there.
That goes back to you guys were always entertaining.
See?
But even if it was having my grandparents over for Sunday dinner or something.
Sunday.
It wasn't like
Sunday.
Yeah.
Not Wednesday. Wednesday. Which is very Southern too. The whole concept of Southerners are the last people in the world that are still going. We still go to church. And so we still live out our faith in a very public way that, I did not do in New York. And so, because you're covert Christians in New York, but down south, you're just like, isn't God good? And so, like when your delivery's on time. And so...
That is that with the bless your heart.
Exactly. Right. So I'm just so happy to be here.
We're so happy to have
you guys are so awesome.
You know what? We should have prefaced this whole recording by saying that we get on tangents all the time, and it is a charming part of our show. So you'll receive no judgment from us.
Because I'm like, what was I thinking? It's like, oh. All right. So, but wait, we're not done. So where you're from, where you've been. And that's like your travels. For most of us, it's like where you went to college. Where'd you go to college?
Here. Atlanta. I didn't make it very far.
So were you in a sorority?
Of course.
Okay, see?
As a true Southerner. My sister was, so of course I thought I had.
What sorority were you in?
Alpha Delta Phi, which was also here.
AD Phi. Where'd you?
Art school in Chicago.
Okay.
See? Defining.
I went to Swanee.
In Tennessee?
In the middle of nowhere.
University of the South.
Yeah.
So, but they're all very Southern. So there's an introduction to architecture and interiors there that you see. Southern schools all very much are, federal style. You have lots of columns wherever you go. That informs, if you go to college in New England, like I did, they're all very, very, very Georgian, very, they have like wood paneling everywhere. And so that's your second introduction after home. That's your second introduction to where you've lived. In my design styles for clients, I always tend towards the French more so than the English. I have a girlfriend who lived in London for junior year abroad, and her design influence is very much English. Mine is very much French. They're first cousins, but they're totally different. Yeah. It's like where you've been. And, that was I was there for 5 years in my 20s. We'll talk about that in a second. Make a bookmark, talk about
Paris.
But also design stages. Write that down. Design stages. We've talked about that. So, no, because that's actually interesting. And I think that your viewers need to know about that. I was just helping a friend with her daughter with that. So that's my number two. It's how do they entertain? What does that, and that's my biggest influence other than, being down south where we fry everything and it tastes great. Going to college in Connecticut, living in New York, and then France. So wherever you are, you're seeing you went to art school, so you have an eye that's trained to look. Most people, until I crack the whip and say, start looking, you want to look. Most people don't. They're like scooting from point A to point B, and they're not really looking and absorbing and asking themselves, why does that please me? So where you're from, where you've been, where you're at. This is reality sinking in. Yeah. This is, I'm here. My realistic decorating budget is X. Even though I probably have, champagne taste, I'm still on a beer budget. So that's, where you're at. You're a young mom with kids. Okay, I mean, if you're going to have white furniture, it better be, stain guarded to within an inch of its life. And I would tell you not even then. So that's where you're realistically at. And then where you're going. And that's the aspirational part. That's where you guys come in, because that's the flavor.
Yeah.
It's stuff that's affordable. It's stuff that you'll keep. It's where you're going. It's aspirational. It's how you want people to see you when they come to your house. What do you want people to see? What's your exterior reflection? So when you consider those four things, that is your design style. And then there's one more. And I think this is really interesting because, do you all have children? How old are our kids?
3, 6.
16.
Woo!
Basically 3, 6, yeah.
So you guys are in it. You're at the very beginning of your journey. You're still in the no white furniture zone.
Well, you've got a white sofa. I've got a
Do you let them sit on it?
I do. Ours are our living room, but there's sunbrella and they come off.
See?
I bleach them once a month.
See?
Yeah. Oh, no, I do.
Because it's a commitment.
Yeah.
It's a commitment.
Yeah, the Rush bar stools are doing less well.
Right.
Because it's a natural material.
And they can't be cleaned. And so, but you're committed to gorgeousness. And so what if they get destroyed?
Yeah. I instead get in there with a brush and
get the crumbs out.
Get the crumbs out. And I do my best to make them last.
Can you just really a vacuum? I mean, do you use a handheld vac?
And I hit them outside. I beat them all the crumbs out. Because the weave goes both ways in a Rush sheet. And then I've used some OxyClean on it. This is not a recommendation, but I had a lot of blueberries to get out. And it did. I mean, they don't look great. It's like cleaning a sisal, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You know I cleaned it, but it's better this way than it was.
But better than having it stained.
I probably should
doesn't
just
look
buy
like new,
cushion.
but yeah.
Probably should just buy cushions.
But then that would diminish the style impact.
Potentially.
Well, you just know that in
You're right.
5 years, you're going to upgrade your bar stools.
I think that's what it is. Or I've thought about even just staining the Rush with dye.
Oh.
Just going
that's
darker.
fun.
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
See, I've thought about the possibilities.
Would the dye
rub off on clothes?
No.
Well, I was going to say deteriorate
shouldn't. They have that
material.
I'll find out. If
or
it
just
gets
paint
away either way.
Paint.
Or paint them.
Paint.
It's one of those things if they're worth saving. But in 5 years, I'll more than likely change what I want anyway. So.
Right. And that's my next segue.
Take it. Run
Design stages. Is that
okay? This is
the future. Yeah.
This is interesting because one of my friends just called and said, I'm moving my daughter into her first apartment. And she's kind of anchoring the apartment. You know, they're going to have the roommates, as you always do, rite of passage. And, you know, it's while she has her job, her working job before she goes to medical school, right? And so her mom was like, you know, I want to invest in some nice things for her that she'll have for the rest of her life. You know, I want to get her foundational pieces and, you know, I want them to be nice.
So nice.
That's so nice.
I said, don't even think about it.
You said let her start with the... Yeah.
Here's why. When you are 25, your style is this. When you are 35, I guarantee you, I speak from experience, even if you are Miss Moneybags, bottomless cash, your style is going to change.
Yeah.
Forget about your living conditions. Forget that you know, today you're in Atlanta, tomorrow you might be in Los Angeles, or tomorrow you might be in Miami. You want to have that flexibility because you don't know where your career is going to take you. You don't know who you're going to be living with. You want to at most say like, okay, we're going to I'll chip in for this sofa, and then you're going to buy back my share in the sofa when I leave. Your taste changes. When you're 35, that's when I'm like, okay, it's time to start doing investment pieces. I think that before 25, at 25, from 25 to 35, I want you to input money in 3 things. Bedding and towels, anything that your skin touches every day. And you can put those in a box and they can go with you and they last forever. Number 2, lamps. Great lamps are hard to find. If you find a lamp that you love,
buy 2.
Yeah, I do.
I too. Yeah.
I too. It's 2. And also, lamps are like one of the last things that are matchy-matchy, right? We still love pairs of lamps. And so buy great lamps. And 3, art. Because art you'll have with you and your taste doesn't change in art. It expands. It goes broader. I say right? It goes broader. But you still love the same stuff you loved at 12 that you do right now.
Yeah.
No,
that's very true.
It expands and you can get it reframed, you know, match your decor, but that's an emotional connection that never dies.
I feel like that's also a connection to where you were when you bought that.
Yes.
It's like having memories on your wall.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. You can always find, like, if you've got, small things, group them all together to make one big thing, or you can split them up. You're always going to have like a sliver of wall, or
always
in the room, or there'll always be something. You're always going to have walls.
You always have walls. You always have room for it. What that particularly looks like, and the rest, it's more strategic. Like I said, I'm a big believer in sharing in furniture because you want a sofa that you can sit on, right? Because it does you comfortable. So I'm a big believer in like chipping in for like that great, Ballard side sofa. Shameless plug. But I believe in, chipping in for this. But then I also believe in shopping garage sales and being frugal with your first apartment. The closer you get to 35, then that's when you start making your big investments.
Yeah. The thing I love about that advice is that when you are like buying, thrifted stuff and sort of being more frugal, it like gives you more room to play. And you can try more stuff.
Right. Because it's not a commitment.
Right.
It's like dating a whole bunch of people when you're in college.
Like you can, you can be like,
that you would never bring home to your parents. But you're going to try it out. No.
I love it.
You could do like an all neutral room and then be like, oh, I don't like that. It's boring. I want red today. And then, you can like kind of, I don't know. I feel like you got to really try
the playful, though.
Yeah.
I do agree. That's the time to play. Too.
Yeah, that's the time
where
to
you're
play.
making the mistakes.
Right.
Yeah. You need to make those. Like all life lessons.
Yeah.
The area of design, I feel like, is the same.
Elaine, is there anything from your like 25 to 35 time period that you still have?
Oh my gosh. Let's think. Yes. Oh my word. Yes. I still have knives that I bought in Paris.
At Yves de Lorraine?
No. The Puce, the Clean and Cool.
Oh.
And so I still have those because they're made, it's totally unpolitically correct, but they're made of horn, of like real like horn.
Beautiful.
So,
like steak knives or like,
they're like steak knives. And so, but they're like, I never use them. They're so nice. I never use it. I still have those. I still have art.
Mm-hmm.
I still have one of my greatest treasures is because I identified obviously very much with Josephine Baker, who was like the American chanteuse that went to Paris. And I have a set of lithographs from Paul Colin, who was one of her friends and a great illustrator of the period, of the Art Deco period. And I'm pleased to report that they have like increased they just had a sale of his and of French stuff. And I was like, and so those are literally, they're one of the two things that I would rescue if I had to run out of a burning. I would take my cats and those prints. What else do I have? I have throw pillows.
Throw pillows.
I have throw pillows. I have throw pillows.
What do those look like?
They're amazing. They're made from antique. I went to Morocco for the weekend, and they are that amazing Moroccan embroidery. Mm-hmm. So they're really antique textiles, but I have those.
Amazing.
Oh, and I have a mirror. See, accessories. I have a mirror that was a pier mirror, like tall and narrow, glazed, that I've carried with me from apartment to apartment to apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So see, those are the little things.
Yeah.
But my pull-out sofa, no.
No, of course not.
No, gone. My
mirror's
bed,
a great one. That's another good one, I feel like.
Yeah, because you will always have room for a mirror.
Over a dresser or at the end of a hallway in your, mid-tree.
And a grouping of, again, on the wall.
Yeah.
Good call.
What about you, Taryn? Do you have anything from when you were 25?
I was literally thinking of it when you were talking, and I was like, man, what have I kept? It is hard. I was the same colorful I am now because I remember in college.
That's part of your DNA.
Yeah, I remember this Ralph Lauren warm hue striped comforter I had in college, and I feel like those warm, bright colors have followed me since. So
my generation had Laura Ashley.
She was still present. She was still present. TJ Maxx just happened to have that Ralph Lauren cover. That's a good. I have to think on mine. I'll circle back because I know art for sure.
Yeah. I have a card catalog that has come with me everywhere where we've lived.
That's with the little drawers?
Yes. And it's fantastic.
Did you guys even still have card catalogs when you went to college?
Yeah,
like, were they still there?
And I never truly learned how to use it.
I really remember.
We're going to have a Dewey Decimal System tour.
I mean, I remember the movies. Like, do you remember the movies that you learned in library class of like learning? Oh, we had like a movie about the Dewey Decimal
System.
Yeah.
I love it.
Does anyone know what I'm talking about? No.
Yes, I get the concept.
Alien.
No, we had like we had a seminar. Yeah. No, we had a seminar where you had to go to the library and they taught you that. It was like webinar 101.
We had it too. It didn't sink in. But
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's totally okay.
So you have the card catalog.
We have a card catalog. And our
how big is it?
Oh, it's stacked 3 high. Mm-hmm. So it's tall. Is it 5 feet?
It's self-standing? It's like
it's on a stand. It comes apart. So it has a base and then 2 levels and then a level with the pull-out stand so you can write down
So they made that piece of furniture just for libraries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
it's modular.
Modular so you could continue to add if you had a bigger library versus
as your library grew.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Where'd you get it?
It came from St. Joe College in Indiana. Mm-hmm. We're getting rid of it. And my mom found it and yoinked it for me. And
that's super cool.
We've had it since our first apartment in Chicago.
What does it do?
And it's traveled to LA and to Atlanta. So it has a really fantastic function in our house where you enter into our house directly into the living room. So we don't have an entryway, but it becomes a place where, we keep a bowl on top where we have our keys. Mm-hmm. All of the drawers are filled with things that we need to go out. There's sunglasses. Mm-hmm. During COVID, it was like, okay, mask it up. We had like 3 drawers full of masks. Like, so it's filled with, batteries in some section.
Right.
Taper candles.
Chargers.
All of those things that you need on a regular basis. But it really is our entry and exit piece. Mm-hmm. So you pull out the drawer, you set the mail on top.
That's so cool.
And every drawer is labeled, correct?
I used to label them, but I don't anymore.
Because I feel like it would be very organizational until you're like, wait, there are 50 drawers, and where the hell are the taper candles? And I've got to open every single drawer to find them.
Yeah, I open a lot of drawers. But to your point, like the purpose of this piece has shifted from my 20s and 30s. So
she's like, it was my dining table once.
Well,
close.
It was a novelty holder for quite some time, especially in my 20s.
Right.
As I would collect like bits and baubles and things from art school. And so like you could...
Your treasure.
But like silly treasures. So like you would open up one drawer and it would be filled with like little plastic animals. And another one that would be filled with lenticulars, which I have a collection of, which are
what are those?
Winky rings. So or like those postcards that like you look at it one way and you see one image and
like
you see the other way.
Yes.
Like a hologram?
Kind of like that.
Kind of. It's 2 images in one and there's a rib.
With the ribs, textured surface.
I have a collection. So it's
old school holograms.
It used to house all of my odds and ends, oddball collections of things. And now it's a lot more practical.
Today I learned the word lenticular.
Yeah,
that's what they're called. Lenticulars. So they're textured and you look at it one way and you see it. It's like kind of like a hologram.
Yeah.
And the other way, it's like it looks something else. That's so cool. Yeah.
So that's what's been with me.
What have you got here?
Lamps. I have 3 lamps. Like 2, a pair of marble lamps I got at Scott's like when I first moved here.
Cool.
This like funky acrylic lamp that I like saw at an antique store, and I told my mom I wanted it for my birthday, and she's like, you don't want that. That's ugly. And I was like, no, I really like it. She bought it for me and I've kept that. And then I have like an occasional chair. It's sort of like a bergère chair that I've had reupholstered. So like an occasional chair. Because you can't always have room for that, right? And it floats. It's easy to float.
That's a good one.
And like a mirror, like
those
a
are
skinny
some good,
mirror.
solid, practical things. And here I am. I've got winky rings.
Hey, you've got a table.
No, but see, that's super cool, though.
It's very cool.
That's super cool.
And bedding, I feel like that's
bedding is so smart.
I have linen, like a big linen set, like basic linen, but like it stayed forever because it continuously layers.
I had my Laura Ashley sheets from college, longer than I would care to admit.
Just keep washing them, they get softer. I love it.
That's fantastic.
But what I think is important is that not one of us has said dining table, dining chairs, sofa, coffee table, period.
Yeah.
Well, because I think like anytime you move, you kind of slough off some of that stuff because you're like, well, this coffee table doesn't fit in the type of room I have. And dining tables, I feel like, are really
space specific.
People feel like, oh, I'm going to buy this and have it forever. But if you buy a house with a square dining room, you got to get rid of your oval dining table because it's not going to work. Yeah. So and I think that's probably one where I feel like people get like they want to invest early, and it's just something that's like can't travel really.
No,
no.
That's why literally if I could have seminars on that because it blew me away that my buddy was like, I really want, because she called me thinking like, make me a shopping list. What am I going to get? And I was like, nothing. You are not buying anything that's that nice. Because she's like, and I understand the intention. It's great to be able to do that, to say like, you know what? The gift that I can give my daughter is of leg up in the decor department for forever. She'll have some really great investment pieces that she can hand on to her daughter. I'm like, your grandchildren are going to want that even less. And so like, newsflash. So she was like, what? She was kind of bummed out about it because she was really excited. I'm like, no, you have another great journey you can go on. It's just not the one that you thought. Because now you can start thrifting things. And those are the bulletins that I get now. Look what we found. Look what we got. Look what we did. Yeah. So, you know, they hit like great sales and they get this. So there's a time and a place for everything. But what I think is hilarious, and one of my actual very first clients was the Miss Moneybags, who spent tons on her first apartment. And then I didn't work with her in her 30s, but I knew the designer, and I was like, what'd she keep? And she showed me the stuff that she kept, but it was a totally different feeling because the more you see, because that's what developing your eye is all about. The more you see, your taste changes. Your taste in clothes changes less, but it still becomes more sophisticated. That's what style really is.
That is so interesting. I've never heard anyone like articulate someone's design style in that way. Like your four
or their design journey.
Yeah.
Right?
I've never thought about that, but it's so true. Like my mom loves English furniture, which I don't really like because she went and did study abroad in England.
See?
And I went and did study abroad in France.
See?
And so everything she tries to give me, I'm like, I don't really like that.
That's funny.
And she's like all perplexed by it, which it had never really like occurred to me in that way.
But if she were to bring you like a French bergère, you'd be like, oh my God, thank you so much.
My occasional chair that I have is a French bergère chair. That's so funny. Yeah. That is so insightful. I'm so glad you're here.
Yay! Yay!
No problems.
That's my greatest joy in the world, is elucidating people, like sharing that knowledge with, because very few people actually sit around and think like, oh, why does that really work? And I'm like, I've got it. Here's why. You don't have to do the work. So that's it.
Well, I think, like for anyone listening, where if they're like, they went abroad in England or something, then they can go forward and they can be like, okay, I'm going to go to like an antique store and I can then articulate to the person there, I really like English antiques.
Right.
Because of the stain or that sort of, turned leg or those little drawer handles they all have or whatever. And then they can use that knowledge to then make sure their purchases are, more, I guess, in line with what they...
Design is so huge. Imagine like a huge warehouse of everything that you want, like available, which is called the internet. And so it's really intimidating to think like, what is I need a side table. Oh my word. And the more you are more deeply familiar with your own style aesthetic, I'm going to Google English side tables as opposed to side tables, which, is like 8,642,000. So English side tables, that helps narrow it down.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that it's formulaic, because our taste evolves. It always evolves. But you know that you want to start, and it always expands. It doesn't contract, it expands. And, the older you get, the more it expands and it softens, because at a certain point, I will tell you in my journey now, because I'm the oldest person at this table. And so I will tell you at a certain point, it becomes an attachment to the sentimental. I'm at that stage, I moved back to Georgia. I lived in Paris. I lived in New York. I lived in Paris. I returned to New York. I was a publicist for 9 years, and then I transitioned and went to design school at the New York School of Interior Design. I have an honorary PhD from them now, which is awesome. Thank you very much. And then I moved back home to Georgia. I worked for Peter Reno, who's like Captain Grand and Fancy Architect. And I always tell design students, you can always trickle down. It's hard to trickle up. So always aim top, for the top as your first jobs. And I moved back home in 2015 to take care of my mom, who had dementia. And so at first I thought I moved back home for the winter, because you live in a small town, and I'm getting reports that she looked lost in a parking lot, it's something like, when you're getting the reports, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to go home for the winter. And then I realized after I had been there for 2 weeks that she deserved an Academy Award for acting sane, because girlfriend Sanity had left the building. And I was like, you have moved back home. You have not moved home for the winter. And so, I had put all of my stuff in storage, thinking that, I would come back and, and acquire a new apartment. But then I'm like, I've moved back home. And now that I've been there since 2015, I'm like, who wants to live in New York anymore? Because I love living. And I go, I fly out of Savannah. And so I could be in New York for a meeting. It's like coming in from Connecticut. I can be in New York for a meeting. I leave on the red eye with the airport, staff, at the airline staff at 6 a.m. I can be in a meeting in New York at like 10. So, I love being able to come and go, and then, not have winter. But I'm back in my childhood home. And now, my mom left us in 2020, just before COVID. Her timing was always impeccable. And so, and that's the last design journey that we make. It starts with, I'm going to cry. I'm totally going to cry. It starts with, your dorm room, which is just like a little dipping your toe in it. It's like, dorm rooms are like drag queen. And so, then you have your first apartment, with your squad. And then, you have your first marital abode. And then, that shifts. Back in the day, we only lived in 3 homes. We lived in the one we grew up in. We lived in our starter home, and then we lived in our family home, right? So now we're a little bit more transitory. So we move more because we're more peripatetic. But so, then you move into the big house, as it were. And then you either downsize, or for me, I moved because so many of us are coming back home to take care of our parents now. I'm back in my childhood home. And my mom, who was a true style diva, if I am fashionable, she is my style icon. And it's taking that very Southern, very formal because, they were judged. Women of that era were judged on their looks. My dad was a doctor, judged on your look. She was a great beauty, fashion plate, the whole 9 yards. She taught school for 1,000 years, and they were judged on their house. They were judged. And Southerners were the harshest judges of, have you seen her house? And so, that era. So taking someone who had such a decidedly personal viewpoint, every single thing, because that was good taste or not good taste. And her house was all about her, right? Because she showed off. You came over, you're supposed to, your jaw was supposed to drop because, it was her kingdom, her queendom. So taking that and making it mine has been quite the journey. And that's the last journey that I'll make. So at this point, the stuff that I've kept is sentimental.
Right.
And then I've blended in my favorite pieces of hers. I've blended in, but like I let her French provincial bedroom suite go. I was like, no. I brought in my own bedroom furniture. So that's the last, the last step of that journey, which is kind of the equivalent of downsizing, right? Because at that point, you only keep the things you love. And everything I look at now, other than like the utilitarian, because there's always a story about a chair in a corner that you needed the chair in the corner. So that is the chair that works in that corner. But the other stuff has a story behind it. And
has it been hard to reimagine your mom's house?
It took a while. Because she left us in 2020. And I think that I really stayed there without, I stayed there a good year. Before, we're very close. So, I talked to her twice a day, whether I wanted to or not. And so I always say she was the original Black Jewish mom. I talked to her twice a day, whether I wanted to or not. And so I stayed there a whole year before I was like, you know what? I can't. I did sit in the sofa though. And so, I put my feet up on the coffee table. I did. And then I did, like, she had these 2 Oriental carpets that when they were still Oriental carpets, we don't call them that anymore, but they were her pride and joy. They had to go because I cried every time I looked at them. That I was like, no, you gotta go. But, and then truly divine intervention, one of my best girlfriends, my best friend from first grade, called and said that her daughter-in-law was moving to, her own apartment, read between the lines. And did I have any old furniture? And I heard my mother's voice say, it's fine. It's fine. That's perfectly fine. I heard her voice say that's perfectly fine. And so I gave her all of the things that I didn't keep. I furnished her apartment. And so, but my mom adored my best friend in first grade, Molly. And so Molly's daughter-in-law still has like all of the great stuff. So, it's, I'm sure my mom's over there haunting her right now. I said, if you feel something cold on you in the middle of the night, just say, hi, Mrs. Griffin. It's just like downsizing, which is, that's hard to do. Like, what do you keep? What do you not keep?
Yeah.
So at that, and that's, once again, it's that emotional and we've gone the full trajectory then, right? Because you've gone from disposable to essential, and essential being like the must-haves. There's a story behind everywhere you look is a story.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yay! Hello there, Ballard Designs. I have a question for your podcast. We are building a lake home, and I'm uncertain what color to paint the 2-story great room kitchen and 2-story 4 seasons room. Wow. These rooms are separated by the kitchen in the middle, and I'm attaching a screenshot of the floor plan. The wood flooring color is a light pine. The color of the cabinets are attached. The island is the blue color. I was thinking of the color alabaster by Sherwin-Williams for the walls. This will allow some contrast between the white ceiling. We'll also be putting up wood beams. I'm not sure if this is enough contrast. The room does have excellent light, and maybe light French gray from Sherwin-Williams would work. Maybe I'm completely off. That's why I'm coming to you for help. Thanks, Amanda.
So number one, good job with those colors, because the blue is a great color. It's a great neutral, and Repose Gray is a great color. It's a great neutral. So yay. And to answer the quick version to your question, to make your kitchen alabaster is great, because alabaster is an off-white. It's kind of like ivory. And it's a great, very, very, very pretty. To me, it is in the top 5 Sherwin-Williams colors that are out there.
Ooh.
So,
what? Okay. Well, never mind. Sorry.
Were the other 4?
Yes. I was going to ask it if you didn't.
Ceiling white. Duh. Extra white. Extra white is the perfect color for trim. Benjamin Moore's White Dove is the perfect color for trim, and extra white Sherwin-Williams is the perfect color for trim. Repose Gray is right there. It's very good. And then there's Accessible Beige, which is like very, very good. And then Sea Pearl, which is a color that we use on the coast a lot. It's like it's a coastal version of alabaster. It has a little bit more green in it. It's very pretty. And Sea Pearl, and there's another one that I can't remember.
I love that you could just rattle those off the top of your head. Yeah.
Paint, hello, is what we know. And I can give you those from Benjamin Moore too, but we're not going to do that today because we're having a Sherwin-Williams moment. Okay, wait. So that's very good. When you're thinking about what color to paint something, your rooms, there are 4 things that you want to take into consideration. One is inside your house, what is happening. Already she said that she's thinking about alabaster for the kitchen. She could have said, I want a pink kitchen, or she could have, we have neutrals going on in the kitchen. She could have had navy cabinets, which were still very trendy. And that would have been like a different decision. She could have already made a commitment. I absolutely must have a black wall. And that was very trendy. So what else is happening inside color-wise, and your upholstery, your whole design, whatever inside. Number 2 is outside. What's happening outside? This is a lake house. We can assume that one of these rooms has a view.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And also, if you look right below the great room, looks like that's where you enter the house. So when you enter the house, your eye is going to go back to that screen porch. And we assume that beyond that screen porch is a gorgeous space, a lawn that leads to a view of some sort of thing. If it doesn't have a view, she has a backyard with a whole bunch of green in it. You want to ask yourself we'll get back to that. What's going on outside? And then number 3 is, what's your color tolerance level? You either love a lot of color, I love a lot of color, or you're a color phobe and you're like, a little bit, not much. I'm guessing that she's a color phobe because she was thinking about a pale gray for that. So I was like, she didn't say, I'm thinking about bright this. So I'm assuming she's kind of towards the color phobic, which means you want to go to a little paler palette. And then the 4th one is, how much natural light do you get in the room? Mm-hmm. If it's facing south, does it like southern facing rooms, southern exposures give you the most light? Northern exposures give you the interesting factoid. Back in the day in England, and I do mean, Downton Abbey, England, where they had hot and cold running people, kitchens of the great houses always faced north because it was the least amount of light. So they were, kept the coolest back before we had central air. And so when they still relied on marble pantries to keep them cool. So how much natural light is the room going to get? What time of day? That's another important consideration in any space. If you're a stay-at-home mom and you are spending a lot of time in your kitchen and your room next to it, that room needs to be colors that look great during the day. If you are a single person and you are in your your den mostly after 6 and you're active from the hours of 6 p.m. to midnight, you want that room to look great at night. Mm-hmm. And, their color palettes, the bigger, the bolder, the stronger. You want to think about that. And those are the things that, and how long are you going to be in there? So rooms that are transitory, like a foyer or somewhere that you're just passing through, dining rooms, those rooms can be brighter. You can have a red dining room because you spend 2 hours a day maximum in there. Or your foyer can be like dramatic because you walk through it. And then the other color rule that's important, since I'm here, is if you are a color fanatic, as am I, and you want to have the green living room and the red dining room and the bold blue bedroom, you have to have a neutral corridor. You cannot have a crazy color corridor. It must be neutral because the eye must rest. You can't go from crazy to crazy to crazy. You need to go from crazy to calm to crazy. Mm-hmm. But the eye must have a moment to breathe. So you have, and then in that point, when you're doing super duper crazy, which I love to do for my clients, you have to have one color that runs through the house. Typically, it's green, it's yellow, it could be a blue that unifies. Even if it's throw pillows, it always have, it's an accent color, but that serves to unify the cacophony of color. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would take into consideration when assuming that she has a great view, when you first walk in, because what do you see when you first walk in? It's the most important vista in a house. Assuming that it's a lake, I would want to have colors like literally sit outside and make a list of the colors that you see in your landscape. Mm-hmm. That's going to be your palette, right? And there's one that's the most dominant. It most likely is green. Mm-hmm. Or if it were a beach house, it would be blue. That's why blue beach houses are always like blue, and southern beach houses are always blue, and white. So you want the room to disappear into the landscape because the landscape is a really star of the show. That's why you're spending all that money to build your lake house. Mm-hmm. So you really want to feel that while you're there. You don't want your interior colors to compete with what's outside because the whole point of having a lake house is enjoying that lake, right? So if the most dominant color were green, and I'm guessing that she's a color phobe, I would go with soft greens. Mm-hmm. And whatever hue you see outside. Most greens go together. If you look at nature, most greens go together, most blues go together. If a color combination exists in nature, in a fruit, a flower, or a landscape, it will go together in your house, right?
You mentioned, or I guess like her gray color is sort of a warm gray. Mm-hmm. I feel like that. I don't know. I always think of lake houses being a lot of brown too, like green and brown because like it's wooded. Yeah. So yeah, I love that idea of the light greens and then maybe having like those neutrals. Yeah.
Or you could actually do the blues and you could make one, because here we don't want to go crazy because she's not a crazy person, and also in a floor plan, in an open floor plan, because we're assuming that there are very few walls here. Excuse me. You want to play with the shades. You could have a darker green here, a lighter green here. You could even go up and down the color chart of your swatch. And one could be lighter, one could be darker. Just variations of the shade. You could make all three. The screen porch, I would make the darkest of it all. I would even consider being daring. Hello, Amanda. I would consider being daring there and going for a very dark green. Because that would just be amazing.
Yeah.
Because then the other two would bounce off of it.
You're thinking for the screen porch or the floor
for the screen porch.
Okay, yeah.
I would make that the darkest color of all, because that you really want to disappear because it's standing between the living room, the great room, and the view. So we want that to disappear. And another factoid is that your inside style statement has to transition to the exterior. If you are mid-century modern inside, please do not go like crazy traditional outside. And vice versa, right? They must be stylistically related, and they also need to be color palette related to because they're extensions. And particularly in the South, when we live outside, 10 months of the year, they really need to speak the same language. They need to be first cousins and not complete strangers. Mm-hmm. I would also encourage her, instead of the grays, because she has Repose Gray, which is a very beigey gray. I would encourage her to look at the beiges, because that very gray moment was such a big trend that it's leaving us now. And it's looking dated. And we don't want to ever decorate for trends because we are timeless. Not necessarily trendy. I would say that gray is looking, that gray must be everything gray. And that I would encourage her to look at the beiges, which probably relate more to outside, right? Because we have that natural color palette. And I'm assuming that, it's not a beach house, so she doesn't have blue. I'm assuming it's brackish water in the lake, so it's probably brown in the gray. So I would encourage like a very pale beige.
Like earthy colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, like nothing too clear.
No.
Like you would do at the beach. Yeah.
Right.
But she, I mean, that blue that she picked is a pretty like muddy.
It's a neutral.
Yeah,
it's a neutral because you could go green and blue. The good news is that blue is the color of the sky, right? All colors take their cues from nature. And then, because I want to demystify everything so you understand it. So if you look at a landscape, that's a perfect color palette if we're focusing on the outdoors. It's one thing if you're in a city apartment and you're facing a brick wall, which I had one of those one day. I put up shutters. And so but I had a brick wall. So what do you do? And that's when you want the whole drama to be inside, saying like, don't look at that window, don't go out there, don't. So as a rule, you can't have both. One, you are blessed with one and not the other. She's blessed with this view here, so the view really does need to be the star of the show. And then, your walls are quieter. She could have a little bounce in the upholstery because it's not all calm. It's, it's not a slavish devotion to the outdoors. I hate it. My big pet peeve, and men love to do this because they're just so devoted to the view. But they're like, I want all the chairs to face the view. I'm like, no, because you stand up, you're going to see the view. At night, the best view in the world disappears. What are you going to do then when your furniture's facing the wrong way?
Yeah, it's a great point.
So that's especially for, a lake house, a beach house, any house that has like a really great view, even if it's, and the other thing to think about is, and this is true for almost every house that has a big backyard and lots of windows, a lot of green is reflected.
Yes. So much. At least here in Atlanta, so much green.
Everywhere. A lot of green. And if you're photographing your house for Instagram or whatever, or professionally, that's the number one pet peeve of photographers because they have to correct that because it reads on the page if you do that. I'm blessed that almost every apartment I lived in New York was photographed for publication. Thank you, God. And that was the number one complaint, that there was a lot of green on the other than the brick wall. There was other than the brick wall.
Was helping.
Oh, no.
But that's a luxury in New York to have a green view.
To have a green view, and it could only be trees. Like, understand, we're not seeing grass, but we had trees, which is like amazing.
That is,
right. That's why I'm like, thank you. But particularly if you have a house, you're gonna have a lot of green coming in. So that means if you have green, you have permission to make it a bolder green than you ordinarily would because it's competing already with the green outside. That's just like fun fact to know.
Yeah.
Are we good with Amanda?
Yeah.
Do we think Amanda has any other questions?
If she does, she will write back in.
Yes.
We don't limit people to one question. They're allowed to. We actually love hearing how it's going. So.
Oh, good. So Amanda, let us know how it's going, girl.
I think that was great advice.
Yeah.
I went back to your where she's at.
Yeah, where she's at. This is where she's at right now.
Yeah.
And think about it. It could be like she has young kids, and this could be like their forever beach house. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
What a, like, amazing project.
Right? We're coming over, Amanda.
Yeah.
When are we coming?
We're looking for an invite.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
We want a weekend, Labor Day weekend next year. We're coming.
That's probably finally when you'll have it fully decorated and done, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
Elaine, thank you so much.
How much fun is this?
We loved having you.
Yes. And everybody, this book came out in 2009, so it's still running.
It's still running.
Yeah.
You can go to my website, elainegriffin.com, to get them, or you can get them on Amazon. I sell them cheaper, so there's a link at elainegriffin.com, and you can get your copy of Rero.
Awesome.
And on Instagram, you're Elaine Griffin as well.
I am. And I have 2 on Facebook. The one that I think is better is Elaine Griffin NYC, because I have the Elaine Griffin from when I was on TV. But I use Elaine Griffin NYC more now on Facebook.
Well, thank you for joining us.
I had such a blast. I'm coming back. I love Atlanta.
I'll be back anytime.
Yay!
And when is your second book coming out?
You know what? I'm thinking about that right now. But the one next, I want to do a girlfriend's guide to living with a dementia person, because there's such it's a journey that's like raising children, if you don't know what you're doing.
We've had a few people write in asking about just making a home more accessible for older generations and younger, because we only speak to the younger. We don't talk about the older.
Right.
And the accessibility needed there. So
right.
I think you might have found your little...
Yeah, that's my next one. That's my next one.
Yeah.
So we're just getting started with that.
Well, let us know.
I'll let you know.
Great.
You'll be the first to know.
That's great.
And that's our show. You can find all of the show notes on our blog, howtodecorate.com/podcast.
To send in a decorating dilemma, email your questions to podcast@ballarddesigns.net so we can help you with your space.
And of course, be sure to follow us on social media at Ballard Designs.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And please leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Until next time, happy
Happy decorating.
decorating.